What's going on? In today's video, we're gonna be going over 4 ways that you can survive any conditioning workout using your nutrition. I think out of all the phrases that could come out of your coach's mouth on the baseline and we're on the track today are probably up there for your 2 least favorite ones. And a lot of times when it comes to conditioning workouts, they can be pretty brutal, especially if you're not in the best shape. And even if you are in pretty good shape, if you don't have good fueling habits, it's really just gonna make it that much worse for you. So what I wanna do for you today is give you some really simple solutions to make this whole process a lot easier, because trust me, conditioning workouts are a lot more fun when you're in front of the pack and you're not the guy that is in the back struggling, just in pain the entire time and ultimately standing over the trash cans. So let's get into it. The first thing we need to look at is, what does your total daily nutrition look like? There's no hack or no little trick that's gonna save you if your total daily nutrition is not on point. So are you eating enough calories on a day in and day out basis? Are your macronutrients on point on a day in, day out basis? Are you eating enough proteins, carbs, fat? Are you eating micronutrients to keep yourself healthy and free of those nagging aches and pains and injuries? Those things are gonna take you a lot farther than any sort of hack I'm gonna share with you today. And really, you'll find that nothing I'm gonna share with you is some magical hack. They all kind of come together in your nutrition plan to put you in the best position possible. So the first thing, again, being make sure your total daily nutrition is on point. If you're in a part of your season or your off season where you know conditioning work is pretty heavy, I probably wouldn't recommend going into a fat loss phase. I would not be in a calorie deficit. I would recommend being at least at maintenance, if not in a slight calorie surplus of eating more than you're burning. And that's gonna put you in a position where you actually have the fuel available to you to thrive in those conditioning workouts. Because if you go into a workout, regardless of if it's a brutal track workout or just any workout in general, if you're not eating enough calories, it's like going into that workout with your gas tank half empty. And again, it's just not a good look. So it's something super simple that most hoopers are messing up. I've said this before, but I can probably count on one hand the amount of hoopers I've worked with that have been actually eating enough calories at the start. So it's a really simple area to fix, but it's affecting a lot of people, so I'd recommend starting there. And then still with part 1 here in terms of total nutrition, I know I said macronutrients already, but I really want to focus in on carbs. And in the video earlier this week, I mentioned how carbs are your body's primary source of fuel. So if you want extra stamina in basketball in general, and that especially rings true if you have a conditioning workout that you're preparing for. If you're going into it, okay, maybe you had enough calories, but you went super low carb for whatever reason, your muscles don't have the glycogen that they need to perform at those high intensities, and it's just not going to be fun for you. So do not go low carb, maybe even low it up a little bit. I wouldn't go full blown carbo load, 10 grams per kilogram per day, but I would definitely make sure you're eating plenty of carbohydrates. Now, the second thing I would recommend is making sure you have a really good pre-workout meal. Pre-workout meal, not really make or break in terms of having it versus not having it is going to take you to this whole other level. But if you mess this up, it can really mess you up in your workout. So it's something to really consider and at least be smart with what you're having. In general, some sort of lean protein source, about 20 to 40 grams of lean protein coupled with some sort of low fiber carbohydrate is a good option. So my favorite option for this is something like chicken breast and white rice. Is it super exciting? Not really, but does it get the job done? Absolutely. And if you have some more skills in the kitchen, you could probably spice it up a little bit, but in general, don't look to make this too exciting. Just look to make it a functional meal that gets the job done for you. I wouldn't go too crazy on the fat intake because that might cause some digestive discomfort and cause food to hang around your stomach for a little bit longer than we want. And same thing with fiber. I wouldn't go too crazy with it. If you want to toss some fruit in or a small amount of vegetables in, go ahead. And the next thing on our list that we're going to want to implement before a really hard conditioning workout is making sure you're staying hydrated. I've talked about this at length on the channel. By now, you should understand, if you're new around here, understand that hydration matters a lot. A 2 to 3% loss in body water is going to lead to potentially a 7 to 10% decrease in overall performance, both physically and mentally. And there's a number of other studies, a number of other numbers and percentages, but the overall consensus is that if you're dehydrated, it's going to negatively affect you on the court and in your conditioning workout that you're preparing for right now. So again, to reiterate this, you're going to take your body weight divided by 2. That's how many ounces of water you're going to drink. If you've watched a couple of my videos, you're probably like, why does this dude keep talking about it? There's a reason why I keep bringing it up over and over again. It is incredibly important. And if you're not taking advantage of this, I'd highly recommend you start now. And it's something that's super simple. I have videos on the channel how to make it even easier for you. So definitely stay hydrated and keep on hydrating during your training. Now, you don't want to go and chug water while you're running a mile or while you're doing whatever conditioning workout your coach has you doing. Running a mile, maybe not the best example for basketball players, but you get what I mean. If you're doing something strenuous, you probably don't want to chug, but keep sipping water, keep staying hydrated to the extent where it's comfortable and to the extent like where you're thirsty. And there's a whole debate about whether or not to use thirst as a way to kind of guide hydration. Not going to get into that right now, but overall, if you're going into it thirsty, it's probably not a good look. You want to just make sure you're hydrated overall. And if you do happen to be outside on the track and it's a hot summer day and you are a salty sweater, you'll probably want to consider supplementing with some sort of electrolytes or just putting a pinch of salt in your water or something like that to make up for those lost electrolytes that you're going to lose in sweat. And then building off of that, the next thing that we're going to implement to really bulletproof you, or as much as possible bulletproof you, there's only so much we can bulletproof you going into a conditioning session, but the next thing we're going to implement is going to be intra-workout fueling. What intra-workout fueling means is fueling during your training session. So everyone looks at pre-workout, everyone looks at post-workout. No one really looks at what they're doing in the middle. It's kind of this gray area, especially for team sport athletes. For endurance athletes like triathletes or marathon runners, or especially ultra endurance runners, they've got this down. But for team sport athletes, it's still kind of, no one really does it, or they kind of do it, but not really planned out. And it doesn't need to be planned out by the minute how many grams of carbohydrates you're going to take in. If you talk to an endurance athlete, it probably does look like that, but for you, it doesn't really need to be. But I would have some sort of plan. Like, know that, okay, going into this workout, it's gonna be long, it's gonna be intense, so I'm gonna have a Gatorade with me. Or I have this practice, then a small break, and then I have to go to conditioning right after. Let me make sure I get a snack in between that first and second session. I have a video on that on the channel, by the way. But in general, have some sort of plan when it comes to how you're gonna go about fueling. When you're in the middle of a training session, you really wanna prioritize carbohydrates. Most basketball workouts or conditioning workouts aren't gonna last long enough to really be concerned with taking in protein or amino acids during a training session, but really you wanna prioritize carbohydrates. And this is gonna apply if your session is longer than about 60 to 90 minutes and it's intense. If it's a low intensity session, you're probably not too scared for it anyway. You might not be watching this video, but if it's a low intensity session, you don't need to go crazy with the intra workout fueling, but if it's high intensity, long duration, it definitely is something to consider. And really the easiest thing to do for basketball players is just use some sort of sports drink. Use Gatorade, it's a pretty good starting point, and it just keeps it simple. You don't have to think about it too much. They have a formula that has all the carbohydrates and electrolytes that you would need. So I would just start there and see how that works. So that in conjunction with the hydration we talked about before should really help you out. So if you enjoyed this video, definitely be sure to drop a like on it. And if you're new around here, subscribe for new videos every single Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And I'm gonna toss a video up on the screen right now going over how to use sports drinks correctly. So building off that last topic, it's gonna explain that even more in depth. So check that out. It should be over here somewhere. And I will see you in that next video. And don't forget, drop a like on this one.